This city was such an incredible place that a Roman emperor couldn't resist, but turned this place into his retirement palace. He renovated the entire city and literally turned it into his own little palace right by the seaside. Now, people who visit Croatia often say that Dubrovnik is the pearl of the Adriatic Sea, but many would actually say that this city is even better than Dubrovnik. Which is why today I'm going to take you on an incredible tour of the city. Welcome to one of the most beautiful places in all of Croatia, the city of Split. Now, early in the morning here in Split, one of the first things you've got to do is embrace the local culture and what the locals are doing. And the best way to do that is to come to the local ribarnica, also known as the local fish market. Here you're going to see vendors from all over Croatia come and sell the seafood that they've caught. And let me just say, there is a lot of seafood. There's eel, there's shrimp, there's fish, there's tuna, there's oysters, mussels, sardines, anchovies, whatever you can think of. They have it. They have basically every animal under the sea on sale here right at the market. And the crazy thing is that this place is open since like 6 in the morning. That's how you're gonna get the freshest seafood possible. Restaurant vendors probably have already had their best pick of the fish, so whatever you're getting is probably what's left over from those restaurant vendors. And yet the choice is still a lot. There's so much on offer here. There's so much seafood, so much fish, so much shrimp. And the prices are pretty reasonable. These are the local prices that they're offering to locals. And just coming here, taking it all in, taking in the atmosphere, the hustle, the bustle, the selling, and of course the really, really strong fish smell. This is how you get into the classic Split culture. And if you look around me, you'll just see how busy this place is. It doesn't stop. I think my feet are wet from being soaked in all the fish juices that are leaking. Wow. Not the cleanest place to be, but definitely one of the most delicious places if you're a seafood lover. The crazy thing about that place is that by noon, they're out. Everything will be sold off and you won't have a single fish left for you to buy. So if you want to see that market in action, you want to see the people hustling and bustling, buying their fish, selling the seafood that they have on offer, you've got to come early in the morning. You've got to come at 7, 8 in the morning. That's when you get the peak of the action, when the locals are coming in and buying the fish and the vendors are obviously busy selling it. But with that, let's go ahead and keep exploring this incredible city. It's very difficult to explain the beauty of this city without first giving you a little bit of the background of the history of Split. Now, Split used to be a tiny little settlement until an emperor called Diocletian came along. And basically, this Roman emperor Diocletian saw how beautiful this place was, and more importantly, its location was perfect because it wasn't too far away from his empire, but at the same time, it gave him the space he needed to relax and retire. So he turned the entire little town here into his palace and built Diocletian's palace here in Split. Now today, the ruins of Diocletian's palace still exist. They form the walls of the city, they form one of the foundations of Split today. But a lot of things have happened since then, a lot of changes have happened. This was probably not a hotel, but now it is. And that's simply because of the changes that have taken place ever since Diocletian sort of left and the palace belonged back to the people. There have been a lot of changes, but everything we're going to see today has some form of a historical significance. So we're going to go ahead and start exploring the city and see all the amazing, incredible historical sites that it has to offer. But first, there is a cathedral right next to this main square, and it is one of the biggest attractions here in Split. So let's go see that first. Now, the Cathedral of Split wasn't always a cathedral. In fact, originally, it was the mausoleum before Emperor Diocletian who passed away. And you can actually see that in the structure of the cathedral itself. It's not a typical cathedral. It's not like a long way all the way in and then you have the nave at the back. That's not what it is. It's circular, just like what a mausoleum would be. And if you just looked up, you'll see that it's like a brick dome, which was what a mausoleum would have been constructed with. However, they did convert Diocletian's mausoleum over time into the cathedral that it is today, and they've made a few adjustments here and there. One of the biggest ones is that, for example, they have a choir room on the back of the cathedral. They had to tear down one of the original walls of the mausoleum to build that at the back, and it's actually really obvious how many changes they've made to the actual place. The tiling is also different. You can see some of the original tiles that were used many hundreds of years ago, and then of course you see the modern tiles that you step on and walk over as you enter the cathedral. It's a really interesting place. There's a lot of little things to see, little details to note, but it is also a very small space because it wasn't intended to be a church in the beginning, it was intended to be a mausoleum. However, right next to the mausoleum, there is the bell tower, and that should give us an incredible view of Split, so let's go ahead and climb up that. Now apparently you're actually able to climb the bell tower of the cathedral for a little bit of an extra fee, so that's exactly what we're going to do. Well, after a bit of a walk, we finally made it to the top of the bell tower. It wasn't the worst hike up, it wasn't the worst climb up. The one in Mostar was definitely much worse, but this is the incredible view you get of Split. You really get a feel for what this city really is. The fact is, it's just one massive archaeological site of the Emperor's palace, and you can see the walls that surround this place and how people have turned that palace into their homes and restaurants and hotels that we have today here in Split. But of course the city of Split has extended far beyond the actual original walls of the palace, and you can also see that, I mean, everything back there, that's well beyond the actual walls of the palace, and obviously those walls don't really define the limits of the city anymore. But from up here you get an incredible view of the city, and you really get a feel for how old this place is. You look down there and all you see are ruins after ruins after ruins. There's just archaeological sites everywhere. And I think that's what's one of the charms of Split, is that this was a big Roman palace for an emperor, and all the remnants that we have here were from an age long gone. It's definitely a very different vibe, and it's also why I think it's worth visiting both Split and Dubrovnik and some other cities while you're here in Croatia, because this city is incredible in its own way. I don't know if this is normal, but it is so windy up here. Don't wear a hat or a cap because it will get blown off from the bell tower and you will never see that again. Now, the cathedral might be a place of worship that has been used for hundreds of years by people here in Split because, you know, it's a cathedral. But Emperor Diocletian, that was his mausoleum. So where did he go for his temples and his prayers? Well, right across this tiny little alleyway from the main court area of the palace is the Temple of Jupiter, and this is where he would go for his religious purposes. Let's check that out. A lot of the religions today rely on one god and that they're monotheistic, but back in the Roman Empire, they had many different gods, and one of those gods was the god Jupiter. He was the Roman equivalent of the Greek god Zeus. So this was a temple dedicated to the Roman god Jupiter. And you can see there's not much left in it. Everything's been sort of taken away, but there are a few sort of major stone tablets. And this structure was sort of built as part of the palace for Diocletian to come on a regular basis. Now, of course, the times of it actually being used as a temple are long gone, and in fact it's actually a baptistery. It changed to a baptistery a few centuries after Diocletian's palace. But you can see the structure at the very top. Those tablets are so ornate and they preserved it so well. It really is impressive how well preserved the entire archaeological site of Split is. On the other side of the court was this underground tunnel that we're about to go under. This used to be the wine cellar of Diocletian. The man knew what he wanted in life. He liked big buildings, big churches, and he loved his wine. So they built literally an entire underground structure for him. It's insane. You really feel the difference in temperature in here. Outside with the sun, it can get a little bit warm, but in here, it's kind of cool. And apparently, once it hits winter, it reverses. It's really cold outside and you come in here, and it's quite warm in here during the winter time. But this place is massive. I mean, how many bottles of wine did Diocletian need? This place could stock so much wine. It's eerie to walk through this place where there's like so much empty space now. They haven't really filled it up with anything, but the emperor knew what he wanted. Out through the end of the cellars and you get to the marina. But what's interesting is that this marina wasn't always a marina. In fact, originally the coastline would have ended right there, where that cellar ended. That's where the coastline would have been, and that would have been the only entrance for food and wines and other materials that the emperor needed from other islands across. But this marina has only been built to sort of expand it out, especially during the years when Split became a big commercial hub and a big trade hub, and then they built out the marina here. Well, you can see right behind me, the southern wall of the palace. This is the original wall that was used by Diocletian to protect his retirement palace, and it still stands today. But you can see today that the walls have been used for a variety of purposes. There are hotels now, apartments now, a lot of different new creative uses to adapt to all the tourism that's coming through into Split. But we're gonna head back under this tunnel, back into the old city, because there's so much more to explore in those walls. It's genuinely so cold in here. It's like you entered a freezer once you get in here. Literally everywhere you walk in the old town, you just encounter ruins after ruins after ruins. I mean, just around the corner of the main cathedral, you come to this area and it's just a bunch of old Roman ruins that were built thousands of years ago. I mean, this sort of red brick structure, this is exactly how Romans were known for building their structures. And you'll also see there's a lot of arches. And I mean, for example, like those right behind me, classic Roman architecture. This was their feat of engineering, using the classic arch to build up entire buildings. And it's just everywhere you walk, you just run into these ruins, and they're just littered all across this place, and they're still being excavated. I mean, this is like a living archaeological site. There's a reason that actually the whole inner sort of Diocletian palace within Split is actually recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site and is protected by UNESCO. I mean, look at that. I mean, it's just incredible how many ruins are just littered across here, and kids just walk around here playing like it's an ordinary day, because for them, they just live here and these ruins are just a part of life. I was just listening to a guy talk about the fact that, like I mentioned, this is still like a living archaeological site and there's still so much to uncover and dig up. But the main obstacle to that is that they don't have money, and they need the European Union to help fund a lot of their sort of archaeological expeditions, but they don't have enough funding to do it. So that's a really, really big problem. On the one hand, it's nice that things are sort of staying underground and might never be discovered and won't be preserved, but on the other hand, it's also like we're missing out on so much that we could know more about Diocletian and the Greek settlement that existed here even before the Romans came. It's a mixed bag. This mosaic right here, literally found 1 year ago, and they didn't even excavate it. The rain just washed it away, and it just appeared out of nowhere. Literally a living archaeological site. Now obviously after Diocletian died, life still moves on, especially here in Split. And people kept doing what they were doing, you know, life continued moving forward. We saw that with the mausoleum and how that turned into a cathedral, and changes were made eventually and slowly, gradually, to the city. Well, a lot of these buildings were sort of built up within the palace walls, and this was especially because during this time period, especially in the 1300s, 1400s, Split became a very successful commercial state, sort of like Dubrovnik. And people here started having money. They started constructing their own little palaces, they started having their own houses, their own residences, and then that sort of grew into Split as we know it. All these buildings were sort of funded by these private individuals who had money to spend on their houses. You'll walk around here and you'll see signs talking about this palace and that palace. They weren't king or nobility or anything like that. They weren't even close to an emperor or Diocletian. They were just wealthy, they had money from trade, and they were able to reinvest it back into the city of Split to create the beautiful old town that we have today. Well, this is an example of one family of Tartaglia built their own palace right here in Split. A lot of these palaces were actually built during the time when the Venetian Empire was running this place. So Venice was a very powerful city-state during that time. And when they took over Split, a lot of the families that were wealthy from Venice and who were living here, because of the trade routes that came from being part of the Venetian Empire, managed to construct all these palaces. So, you know, Dubrovnik may have been a rival to Venice, but when Venice came here, a lot of the Venetian families, the families that were living here, constructed these massive buildings that you see right above me. Here again, another classic example, a palace, except now it's a supermarket. That is how you modernize in the 21st century. Moving a little bit, just a few blocks down from the sort of main Diocletian palace court area, you get to this massive space right around me, and this is the People's Square. The People's Square was built as a result of growing, thriving commerce here in Split, and as people got more money and they were able to reinvest it back into Split, not only did they build those residential palaces that we were talking about, but they also invested in such a big square for the community. During this time in the 13th and 14th century, Split really expanded. You saw a lot of growth. They sort of incorporated a lot of the suburbs that were originally outside of the palace. And it sort of made for a bigger, larger, and more powerful city, especially during the time of the Venetian Empire when they were coming over and ruling over this place. But today, it's a massive square lined with a bunch of restaurants and bars and coffee shops. And it is a really nice place just to sit down, get a drink, have some fun, and relax when you're here in Split. Largest chocolate bar in the world, right here in Split. Who knew records were being broken in this city as well? Now earlier we had walked down past the wine cellar, the basement, all the way to the southern wall of Diocletian's palace. In the past, that used to just be the ocean line, and that's where Diocletian would get his supplies that he needed from the ships that came by. But right here is the northern wall, and this northern wall is sort of closed off by this gate called the Golden Gate. It's a gate that marks the entry into Diocletian's palace, and for nowadays at least, an entry into the old town. You can see right behind me this massive wall. I mean, that is the wall from Diocletian's palace. You can also see that somebody's apartment is right there, and people are using the wall to live, and it's just sort of immersed into the city itself. There's no longer a separation between what was Diocletian's palace and what wasn't. Nowadays, it's just all of it has become the city of Split. And that's what makes it really interesting. As you're roaming around the city, you just might be walking through some random ruins without even realizing it. Now at the gate, there are some sort of old Roman guards that you can take photos with, some great souvenirs that you can obviously take from that. But for me, just seeing the wall itself is pretty much good enough. I had to give in to the temptation and try out the famous Luxur right here in the sort of court of the Diocletian Palace. But I'm not a big coffee drinker. I know Luxur's finished with the coffee, so I got some lemonade instead. We're gonna sort of chill here a little bit, relax, and we've got one final thing to see here in Split. So I'm gonna rest up, and then I will show you guys one of the best viewpoints you're gonna have of the entire city. Well, it looks like that well died out a long time ago. Now, one of the final reasons that Diocletian chose Split, this area specifically, to be the home of his palace is because of this right here. This place right here is called Marje Hill. It's a hill that's located just a bit west of Split, and it's a sort of nature reserve. And it was that case in Diocletian's time as well. He would come here for hikes. The people who would work for him would come here and enjoy the nature, and then he could easily go right back into his palace and enjoy whatever feast was waiting for him. Now obviously today there is no more emperor, but people still come up here, locals come up here, they do their exercise routes here, and for tourists, well, it's an incredible view of Split right behind me. It really, you don't get a better view of Split than that. But what we're gonna do is, it's getting close to the sunset, so we're gonna go ahead and chill out here, and we're gonna watch the sunset over the beautiful city of Split. I don't know how great the sunset's gonna be because the clouds, I don't know if you can tell, but if you look up there, the clouds aren't looking the most cooperative. We're gonna make the most of it, and we're gonna watch the end of the day here from this hill. Unfortunately, the weather is really not cooperating with us here today in Split. If you look right behind me, those clouds, they're getting darker and they're moving this way, and I'm concerned that it's going to completely rain out. But with that, this is going to be the end of our video here in Split. I would say that Split is a very interesting city. It is a city that is more historical than anything, just because of its role as Diocletian's palace and everything. I would also say that it's very different from Dubrovnik. I honestly, to be completely honest, I was gonna skip Split. I didn't think I would need to spend time here in Split. But as I've explored the town today and I've seen the sort of little alleyways, it is very different compared to Dubrovnik. Dubrovnik's a lot more orderly. You've got roads at right angles and it's very clear. You go through the stratum. But here in Split, it's not exactly like that. You've got a bunch of little different tiny little alleyways that you can walk through. You've got beautiful little squares that are haphazardly built over time as they used what remained of Diocletian's palace to turn it into a city. You've got walls that are just randomly built to protect against new invaders that came in. It was always a work in progress over time, and it wasn't really as clearly structured and planned out as Dubrovnik was. Which is why I think, in general, Split is a very nice city to visit. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope you guys have found this video helpful and have enjoyed the video here in Split, Croatia. If you did, definitely give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more food and travel videos. Unfortunately, this is our last sort of travel video here in Croatia. We're going to a new country tomorrow, and that's going to be really exciting. But if you're obviously more interested in this, please make sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye guys.